bald guys with rancher rhyme. Two bald guys with rancher rhyme. Two bald guys with rancher rhyme.
I love when your Monday morning time to rise and shine. Want some motivation? Well, I know a few guys with the internet connection. 216 is on. Tune in. The two bald guys with rancher rhyme. Introducing Coach Papa Tim Stewart's his name. He's the master with the pen in the poetry game. He wants to see a better world and he plays his part. Always loving, always giving, cause he's got a big heart. The co-host won't boast, but he can stand on his own. From the state of Iowa, it's the man Ken Jones. He's impressive on the mic and he don't need a cord. Whether hosting or he's hooping, he's controlling the boards. And the one feeding the hungry herd around the world. With timely observation, dropping nuggets and pearls. Though he's not a city slicker, he's as cool as the Fonz. It's the witty wisdom giver, Mr. Rancher Ron. Set the tone for your week, 216 is on. Tune in to Two Bald Guys with Rancher Ron.
Good morning, everybody. It is time to get the week off on a fast start. Of course, he's Coach Papa, and I'm Deke, and we can't thank our good friends over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center enough. These guys do it all: acupuncture, massage therapy, reflexology. 100% of the crew are licensed massage therapists. Check them out at www.mchenrymassage.com, 815-385-8190. John and his team are incredible. Coach, still down in Texas, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, this is we're headed home on Wednesday, be home on Thursday. It's hot down here. I don't know if you've heard the rumors, but it has been over 100 degrees each and every day we've been here with no rain.
No rain. It's been raining. It's a beautiful rainy day here in northern Illinois. Yesterday was a great rainy day too. Nice and warm and just good rain. So
Yep. My
we needed it.
grandson Ethan just got up. He's on his way out to football practice.
Woo wee.
Yes.
For him. That is nice.
Down here, if they're going to practice, they have to do it before.
Yeah, it gets 150, right? Yeah, Texas just likes to show off. They like everything big. So
they're high school football stadiums. You drive by them, you swear you're at a college.
They are. It's amazing.
They take their football serious here.
It is amazing. Of course, we are on part 2 of leadership. And today we want to talk about some of the fallacies of leadership. First, though, we want to thank everybody. Boy, that last week really stirred and spurned a lot of conversation. A lot of people caught the replay and watched it on their own time.
I'm on radio.
And we absolutely love all the comments in there. We did put a couple of replies to it, but if we were to go back and go through those comments, well, we'd have last week's show all over again. So
yeah, and that's kind of not the point. But I do appreciate especially Alex's comments. He got really detailed, and I did agree with you by the end of the show that leadership is simply having people who follow you in its most simple nature.
And
today, I know we're talking about the fallacy of leadership, but I think really what we're talking about is the fallacy of people who are in leadership roles.
Yeah, and just to go back though, let's start off by what we came to as a definition of leadership at the end of last show. And leadership, we said, is a process of social influence which maximize the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal for good. And to be used for good.
We did use for good, and for myself, being involved in leadership and leadership training for so long,
many years,
and still leading a flock of 12 grandchildren now.
Yeah.
It is a power for good. Say what you want about the ability to influence people or trying to separate character from leadership. You can't.
Yep.
It is, if your character is flawed, your leadership is flawed.
A lot of times. So some of the things we want to talk about today are the fallacies of leadership. Not that leadership is false, but people who or myths perhaps of just because A plus B does not equal leadership, if that makes sense.
Well, of course it does. Back in the college days, they called it the Peter Principle, where people were promoted to one level above their ability.
Mhm.
When you get put into a position of authority, it doesn't automatically make you a leader. Matter of fact, most times people aren't used to the amount of authority that they do have, and they become um, boy, as a wordsmith, I'm lost for words at the moment, but I keep going back to the word flawed.
Mhm.
They think just because they have a title, then they have all the answers. And the truth is, none of us have all the answers
Right.
to anything. We think we do, as a parent.
Yeah, perhaps we start seeing the dents in their armor. Maybe the little hailstone dimples on a car. As from a distance, it looks good. Somebody gets that promotion, or quote unquote gets moved into a place where people would expect leadership, and all of a sudden you start seeing those hail-sized dimples up close, and their strengths and their weaknesses tend to shine. If that,
Yep. And we had 14 leadership characteristics that we worked on in training in the military. Not to say there's not more, there could be. But in those leadership traits such as humor, humility, integrity, tact, you look at some of the people in leadership roles, and just the four of them I mentioned there are missing.
yeah,
Uh, it's uh, our last leader of this country lacked tact. Uh, I mean, he was void. There wasn't a 1 through 10. It was a -4. Uh, but did he accomplish things? At the end of the day, how's history going to measure him?
right.
They're going
Yeah,
to measure him on
only time.
January 6th, or are they going to measure him on the things that whoa, Richard
Yeah,
Rostron.
as I live and breathe, Rich Rostron,
Good,
unbelievable.
good morning, Rich.
Good morning, brother. Hopefully you're healthy and well, and everything's good. Um, well, as we talk about leadership fallacies, and of course, we here at 216 The Net do not run into politics. It'd be easy to find and go down that rabbit hole. It's not really a hole; it's more of a volcano hole. It's
Right.
huge. Um, uh,
All of the above.
physically healthy or
Well,
mentally.
I agree with you. I mean, that was our agreement right in the beginning.
Yeah,
But when we're talking about leadership, that's one of the most transparent leadership roles in the world.
yeah,
But look at leaderships of any country and what's going on. Does it power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. A lot of times when people get into that leadership role, as you say, their character flaws. I mean, look what's going on in Saudi Arabia right now. This is just it's it's crazy. 80 deaths uh, by in their penal system. What kind of leadership is that?
it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, let's get out of the world of politics, and let's roll into the world of 216 Net. So, one of the fallacies I think of leadership is a good manager makes a good leader. So, a good manager makes a good leader, and what defines effectiveness at one level, coach, will be the expectation at the next position higher, but not the responsibility.
Well, the statement you just made is one that I looked at for years because you said it in the direction I believe that is false. A good manager makes a good leader. That's not always the case. In some cases, it is. On the flip side of that, a good leader uh, can always become a good manager. Uh, but a person who's good at managing accounts, managing inventory, managing things, tries to treat people as if it's an object, and that becomes a glaring hole in their success
Yeah,
because
yeah. I think that when someone gets promoted, let's say from a senior director to a vice presidential role, right? So to a vice president role within a company, there's a mental shift that is required to move from a tactical operational perspective into its more strategic. Yet doing so isn't real easy because that person has never been required to think perhaps strategically before.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, especially we see that in the military all the time. It's one of the reasons I was never comfortable making the moves up to brigade and battalion level. I was a tactical commander. I
Hmm.
was a company commander at the level of people. Once I didn't have people to command anymore, a lot of my weaknesses came out. Like I was very impatient with people when I was on the ground and away from them and their stupid decisions. I just let it go and took care of my men.
Yeah.
But when I got up and I was at the same table with some of these decisions, I got myself in hot water several times, um, just because I wouldn't keep my mouth shut when they're doing things that are really in violation of good training standards for the real troops out on the floor or out on the ground. It was hard,
Yeah.
but when you have to make a move, let's say from a plant manager level, you move up to corporate headquarters and you now become the head of all plant managers. Uh, that's a hard thing to do because you can no longer manage. Uh, when plant, you have to begin to manage individuals, and it's you can't do it. You have to lead them.
Hmm. And Shayna, good morning. Glad to have you with us. Shayna says managers clear the way for the talent to perform at their top level. Managing is figuring how to get the best from your people. Good morning.
Good morning, Shayna.
Yeah, and that's but that doesn't necessarily make a good leader.
Yeah.
So I've seen it time and time again, and I'll use my own experience. I'll use my own experiences in the banking industry for the last 20 years, Coach, and you know this just because of how close we are. Is you know I am the guy who takes a struggling branch, takes a struggling department, and breathe life back into it. I'm creative enough and a good enough leader to pull the bad news bears, or take the bad news bears perhaps to the championship game. Um, my leadership style is not one that keeps the bad news bears in a championship level. If that
Absolutely does.
so I can come in and fix and create, and then I have to go to the next bad news bears. All my life, it's been that way. All my professional life has been that way. I have been I have taken several branches for several different banks, and created winners out of losers, and turned it around. And once that was done, then they moved me to the next set of losers.
Yeah, it's in the world of crisis management. I was always a hero. If things were going too smoothly, I sometimes think I created my own problems just because I needed problems to solve.
Right. Right. Um, and it's interesting when we see people who are good at something and don't have the ability. And I think a good leader has the ability to say, "Oh, I'm not good at that."
Quite often, one of the things when we were in the green room talking, it was clear that a true leader doesn't see himself really as a true leader.
or herself.
or herself. That's very true. Very
Their
true.
self.
Or itself,
Right.
whatever you want to classify
Whatever. Yeah.
it. Because and that keeps them hungry and keeps them working to become a better leader.
Yeah.
Um,
And yes, I think, to Shayna's point, I think managers do clear the way for talent to perform at their top level, if they aren't full of themselves, and if they aren't trying to step on somebody's back to get up that ladder. And when you have a good manager, and I would say a great manager and a good leader, I'm going to let you shine. I'm going to let my team shine.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a situation when I was a E4 medic. A sergeant came down to the day room one day and he says, "Hey, Stuart, could you stand up for a second?" I'm like, "Sure," and I stand up and he sits down in my chair. He's like, "Thanks." I'm like, "Really?" And, he uh, he went off to active duty, and I went to the officer candidate school. And I was now the executive officer in the company, the second in command. And I heard that he was coming back off active duty to become our full-time readiness NCO. So National Guard has every unit has 5 full-time soldiers that are there 5 days a week. And the first meeting I went to, morning, Bill in Dubai.
Bill's out
Ooh,
in Dubai. Of course, tune in this week. He's got another great conversations with CEO that'll be that he pre-recorded before he headed over to Dubai to take care of some. Bill, glad that you're over there, made it safe. He says it's only 108 degrees over there, Coach. What do you got down in Texas?
It's been 108. The highest it's been since I've been here is 113. So it's been warm. But anyway, I had the first meeting of the leadership team, and I got there early, and Dan Fuhr was company commander, and I'm getting things set up, and then Sergeant Wood came in. Well, it's a hot day, and I had my hat with my rank on it and my jacket with my rank on it were hanging on my chair, so I just had on the brown T-shirt and the PDU pants. And he goes, "Oh, Stuart, see, you're taking a leadership role in the company. Good stuff." And about that time, Captain Fuhr walks in. He goes, "Oh, Woody, I see you met my executive officer." And he looks at me. I picked up my hat with the shiny gold bar on it, and I kind of rubbed it. And I go, "Yeah, and trust me, Woods, I forgot all about that chair incident down in the day room." And it was just, one of those things that, the people you step on the way up the ladder are going to be in a position of power when you're on the way down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I like what Shayna says here. Managers can't make the leaders; they can only manage them. Managers may also be leaders, but not always. And I like that. I think if you're a good manager, that you can manage up and you can manage down.
Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a leader. It means that, hey, I know how to manage the leaders. I can keep everything in perspective and leading that way, which is great. So
Good.
yeah, I agree with that. Holy
cow! There he is. Good morning, Alex.
Sleep. Boy, it's early out there on the West Coast. Alex, good morning. You know you're a winner when you're up at 4 a.m. getting things done, and also listening to
It just doesn't kind of have the same sequence when we're in 1,000 miles apart. But Alex says, "I wouldn't say I'm a great frontline manager. I'm not patient enough for that role. There's different levels of management that fit people's skill set. But I also learned instead of climbing someone else's ladder to build my own."
That's right.
Alex.
There's a good point there.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of why I'm good at triage, I guess, because I say that I'm a great intrapreneur, right? I can take somebody else's guidelines, somebody else's rules, and be very creative and kind of do the same thing as build my own effing ladder, right? Absolutely.
One of my, I hired a coach a number of years ago when I was in the financial industry to try to get me over some hurdles I was struggling with. And one of the things she said was, I not only make sure that you're climbing the ladder, I make sure it's leaning against the right wall.
There you go.
And I thought that was a powerful statement, because we're all trying to climb a ladder. If we're not learning and growing, we're falling and dying.
If you ain't learning, you ain't earning.
That's right.
Fallacy. Here's another fallacy. Let's jump into this one about leadership. Effective leadership is unique to the industry. So I'm in the plastic mold injection industry, and my style of leadership is good for the plastic mold injection industry. That is a hardcore fallacy. You might have grown up in that industry and be good, but it's quite the opposite, I think. Strong leadership is strong leadership no matter where it exists.
But I think there's some truth. Let's take a military leader,
Mhm.
and one who was a drill sergeant. You know, that powerful, forceful type leader, and you put him in the cosmetic industry. Well, there's going to be some struggles to fit in there. Uh, Whether he's a good leader, it's still going to be a challenge because the industry is so different from what he grew up in.
Well, let's go back to let's go back to our definition of leadership. Leadership is the process of social influence, which
Mhm.
maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal for good or a good cause. Um, the pursuit of excellence remains the same no matter what industry you're in. So there's defining principles. You know, there's things that are that a leader has, right? So a good leader always has performance, right? There's always performance, the physical, mental, emotional, the spiritual capacities that compose the individual, such as habits, health, focus, self talk, emotional intelligence. We talked about that last week, decision making, communication, right? I think a leader always has adaptability, the skill and will to learn and unlearn, more importantly, presented through a self renewal and self organization. Leadership is that, right? Decision making, communication, authentic self expression that instills values in others. So I don't think that's industry specific. As far as leadership, managing may be, because I don't know that. Alex says people watch someone that was successful and then try to emulate that person. How many Gary V leaders are we seeing nowadays? There are few originals. Not saying I'm one, just saying there are few. Too many people would rather emulate than innovate. But throughout history, human beings are copycats. You've heard that by now in this world, there's not an original thought. There's not. There's new actions that can be taken, and some of the best take that and emulate that person. Michael Jordan, for everybody out there who doesn't know who Michael Jordan is, back in the 90s was an incredible athlete and basketball player. And he is, quote unquote, the measuring stick in the National Basketball Association. Kobe Bryant, younger, played in the 2000s, late 90s and 2000s, emulated Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan said the only person he doesn't believe he could beat one on one is Kobe Bryant because he emulated and took all of his moves, worked harder, and you know, it worked harder and you know, perfected him perhaps. And yes, Rich, there are people out there who don't know who Michael Jordan is or only know him as a bat crying meme out there. So it's fun, especially in the coaching world, where people are coaching 13-year-old kids that use Michael Jordan as a reference, and I go, they don't know who Michael Jordan is. They may know him as a basketball player, but they don't know his greatness.
Well, early in my coaching days, I was using Will Chamberlain, and they'd look at me like, "What?
Right.
What are you
Right.
talking? Who?"
Yeah. So I think there are I think there are certain qualities that a leader has, no matter what industry you're in. I don't think leadership is industry. You may know an industry better than others, but a good leader can go in and go, can do this, and let me change this company and move it forward. Shayna says leaders know how to get what they need from others and isn't dependent on industry, since the skill has exactly. I absolutely agree with that, 100%.
I'm certainly not disagreeing with it, but I am saying that, when you go from leading one group of people who you have to play the alpha male role in the room to another group of people where you have to be the diplomatic leader, it takes a different set of leadership skills to.
Absolutely. I've hired former military and pretty good ranking military people who turned out to be pieces of crap employees.
Right.
And the reason is my style of management and leadership is very hands off, non micromanage. A lot of military people is I've got to tell you exactly what to do, and as soon as you're done with that, I got to tell you exactly what to do, and as soon as you're done with that, I have to tell you exactly what to do. And their training, not that it's bad, their training is just that. So they're ready. Here, this task is complete. Let's move to the next task. What is it? Instead of going, this task is complete, I got to find another task.
Right.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex says few leaders are actually liked. They usually innovate and break the wall down so others can walk through. Only later in life are most leaders who we look up to are regarded.
Could you give me a few examples of that, Alex? As we take a look at that, because in the world of leadership versus managers, I can agree that most managers are not liked, but in the world of leadership, if a leader's truly out there serving, then there's a respect that happens for a good leader. That respect is quite often lacking for people who simply manage or are in a leadership role, but they're not qualified to be there.
Yeah,
in my experience.
I think you're right, Coach. But at the same time, I think Alex is right, and what I mean by that is people are always trying to take a bite out of you.
Right.
Sometimes the only taste of success that people get are when they take a bite out of you. And when you're innovative and when you push against, when you start walking against the flock or walking a different direction than a flock, it's, oh, look at that idiot, I don't agree with him, or her. So they're idiots. When I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and who feel that way about innovators, and I say, well, okay, let's take a look at said innovator and understand that they're a husband, they're a father, their family is their world, they're good people. You have a philosophical disagreement perhaps with the way that they lead their team or do their business. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that they're different. And a lot of times leaders are looked at as managers as well. And that guy or gal is an idiot. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they got in their position. They should never be in a leadership position, but it's not. It's a management position.
Amen. If you're wondering why I had to get up, we now have the answer to who let the dogs out. It was me. My grandson went to football and let the dogs without taking them outside, so they're all begging at the door.
They're wound up. There you go.
3 dogs, and they needed me to lead them out to the restroom.
Yeah. Shayna says it's more important for me to respect anyone I need to answer to. I've liked all I respected, but it was usually someone with a very in check ego. Yeah. And I think that's a trait of a good leader is when you have that ego and you're able to check it. Like I said, a great leader is humble enough to go, I'm not good at that. Let me find someone better than me and put them in a position that they could get that done. And that is a huge asset to have as a leader. You know what? We're right at the bottom of the hour. Of course, we always want to take a little break and say, hey, thank you to Natural Therapy Wellness Center, massage therapy, reflexology, acupuncture. If you're stressed, if you are carrying sore muscles, headaches, neck aches, and you're just balled up tight as a nut, you want to go see John and his team over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center. Check them out at www.mchenrymassage.com or give them a call at 815-385-8190. They have a cool studio. They do great work. And trust me, we appreciate their love and support all these years on Two Bald Guys and a Microphone. So thank you. Excellent stuff. Alex has a question as we start the second half of the show. Here's a question, something I personally struggle with. I can't listen to people who consider themselves motivational speakers or business coaches, life coaches, or any of the sort, because rarely is there any accountability towards their actual success. They can just consider themselves one tomorrow and poof, try to get clients, when in most cases their lives suck or they never accomplish anything. Is there a bar or accountability we hold leaders to stay being leaders? Yeah, absolutely. There and let me and I agree with you, Alex, 100%. And here's why. And I'm going to pick on Coach for a while because when I first met Coach, I asked him the same thing. Do you have some sort of certificate? I mean, yeah, what makes you a coach? What makes you a business coach? And he has accountability partners. He has people that make him better. You do get a lot of quote unquote coaches, especially the life coaches. I'm not a big fan of life coaches either. You live your life, I'll live mine. But I think that a good coach, a good business coach, a good whatever coach you have is one that is held accountable and has coaches or accountability partners that way.
Well, and any industry has people at the top and people at the bottom and a whole bunch somewhere in the middle. I couldn't agree with you more on part of that, Alex. There's a lot of people out there who call themselves inspirational speakers or motivational speakers or business coaches, life coaches, who simply went and got a license. Hey, good morning, Frankster.
Fantastic.
But they're just following somebody else's program. They're not doing that. I think what makes a coach is when somebody searches them out for coaching, not because they're a good marketer.
Yeah.
And most of what we see is just people out marketing, trying to get business, trying to get their shingle on the door. There are people who need things. There are people who need a voice. I've been involved with the Zig Ziglar Corporation for a number of years, and I've got several of my accountability partners through that organization, where we just, we work together to solve each other's problems or help people over the hurdles that they face in life. But when it goes to your real question here, is there a bar of accountability? If you've got followers, as you said, you're a leader. So if you lose followers, well, there's your bar of accountability. If people aren't, following you anymore, people aren't doing what you're saying anymore, well, then you're probably not much of a leader anymore. There's a formal leadership role where you're placed into a vice president role or a management role. And there's an informal leadership role, the people, who people actually go to for the answers. And it's that informal leadership role that you can look around and say, hey, if people are coming to me, then I'm still a leader. But if you're sitting out on an island all by yourself and nobody's working to get to you, then
the other spot in your question is business coaches, life coaches, not necessarily leaders. Okay, a coach is not meant to play the game for you. A coach is there to inspire, train, teach, motivate, but not necessarily go do the work for you. So, as you know, Alex, you can put together an incredible marketing plan for a company. If they don't execute, not your fault, right? Not your fault. However, if they do execute what you put out there, the accountability is the results. And so a coach, although in several cases is quote unquote a leader, that a person who does possess uh, the process of social influence, which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal for good, is they could be looked at as leaders. However, they're not the doers. So I can maximize your effort through social influence, and still we would perhaps that business falls short. Now, um, I think that the industry has um, the industry there's a lot of places. Oh, hey, you take these vitamins and you get to a certain point level in a multi-level marketing company, and because you take those vitamins and have sold so many, you're now a coach. You're a health coach. Well, you to your point, your health might be crap, but you now are tagging everybody. Hey, I'm a health coach. I'm a health coach. I'm a health coach. So it's very, very interesting. Now, I do like what I like what Shayna says. I found both wisdom and leadership from some crazy hot messes. So I would disagree. you could always you could always find good things.
Well, for a person who maybe has never really needed or felt the need to have a coach in their life, I can see that perspective. But there are many others who don't have built-in coaches in their life, don't have built-in mentors in their life. Uh, look at foster children. They've lost a good parental role model. They don't have parental role models. They get thrown in foster homes that are just trying to collect a buck and aren't really interested in the progression of the child. That child's going to grow up with a lot of struggles. On the flip side of that, you get a foster child who happens to get in a home where the people truly care and are worried about their development. You can have some of the greatest success stories in the world have come out of foster children. So it all depends on the leadership role. I know in 45 years of coaching, and Kent, you've been doing it a long time. I've never got to play in a game. But
Weren't
yet
you a player coach like Bill Russell? God
I,
rest.
I was, God rest his soul. I was not, but well, I guess I was in adult basketball a few times. But um, the point is, as a business coach, so many times I've had people want me to come in and manage their business, and that's not our role.
Hmm.
Our
Yeah.
role is to teach you how to manage your business and or teach you how to become a leader in your industry.
Well, and it's easy. It depends what kind of leader you are. So, as a leader, when I'm on the basketball court, I still I still show my athletes, hey, look, it's easy to shoot free throws. Here's what a left-handed layup is. Here's some dribbling drills. I'm a leader who I try to earn your respect and earn that place by showing that I can. Doesn't mean I'm going to get out there and play, but it shows that I understand, and I think that helps a lot. And a lot of coaches, if if you're a quote unquote business coach and you've never been in the plastic mold injection area, um, uh, the manager owner may look at you and go, you don't know anything about this, which then you have to come back and say, well, but I do know about this, and this,
Right.
and I've been in this, and this situation. I think if you're a good business coach, if you're a good life coach, you're going to be in those lanes that you have experience in, that you can become a storyteller in.
Well, I have two clients who are chiropractors. I'm definitely not a chiropractor, nor do I play one on TV. Uh, but the basic business and leadership, it's what you said earlier, isn't doesn't differentiate between the industry. I may not be able to tell you how to turn on and operate that injection molding machine, but I can certainly help you with your communication style.
That's it, Alex. Chucky, good morning, brother. How are you? Good, 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 good. Yeah, Shayna says I would pause if the AA speaker was smashed, though. So it depends. Yes. Are you still a leader if your influence sent me in the opposite direction?
It depends on if that was a good direction or not.
Yeah.
But
Um, yes, I think you are a good leader, but it depends on if that was the intent of my influence. If it wasn't the intent of my influence, then no, I was probably not a good leader for that situation. But as a good leader, if I'm like, hey, Shana, you need to be in, you need to be in transportation and not in marketing because you're stronger and have better skill at that. Um, eh, but you're not going to follow my lead anymore. You're going to end up following coach's lead that because you'll be in a different area. Then yeah, I think that's great leadership. If it's you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, you're pushing me the wrong way, so I'm going right instead of left, then probably wasn't a real good leader. So I think it goes both ways.
I had the officer candidate school when I was a candidate. I had a very bad experience in the morning when I was leading. I failed horribly that morning. And then when we got in formation and we're ready to march to the classroom, when I said go left, they went right all by themselves. I mean, they did the opposite of everything I said. So that brought back a clear memory of a day when I failed at leadership, and taught me a great lesson that every moment you're a leader, you're a leader. You can't separate when you're
Yeah,
in the plant and when you're in the grocery store.
and
I like
I love what he says there. Yeah, the struggle is Kent. You played collegiate basketball. There's people that lost 8 pounds and now consider themselves life and weight coaches, and I have to shake their hands at networking events and listen to how they motivate. Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, we'll bug you incessantly to take their protein bar.
yeah, I've quit smoking, therefore you need to do this to quit smoking. You need,
Right.
yeah, they get just a little bit crazy.
It is.
But
Yeah, good for you. Great 8 pounds. Nice job. That is wonderful. Uh, so we're talking about leadership question mark and the fallacies of leadership. Well, another fallacy that's out there about leadership is only leaders can make decisions. And we've talked a little bit about that, right? Um, is that what you see, especially in the military? Only leaders can make decisions.
no, that's absolutely a fallacy because decisions are made at the lowest possible level. A CEO shouldn't be telling you where to buy paper clips, and the janitor shouldn't be leading the merger of two companies. But unfortunately, the lot of people want to be involved in each and every decision within their organization, and they're not doing what they're paid to do. So decisions should always be made, but you have to train them how to make those decisions. And one of the topics I talk about, if you know who I am as a leader and you know how I would make a decision as a leader, then you're going to make a similar decision because anything that goes awry of that is going to create friction between us. But if I don't allow you into my world, if you don't know who I am or how I think or why I make these decisions, then the decisions that you make are probably going to be a problem.
Yeah. Um, you guys in the military had what was it? I was doing some research on this. CIRs. Does that make sense? Am I
CIR.
am I thinking about that? Critical. Um, let me see. I wrote it down. The critical information requirements.
Yeah, it was part of our decision making process. You have three levels. You have critical, you have obviously non-critical, and then you have those that kind of waver in the middle there. And anything, critical information is how many guns do they have, how much ammunition do they have, how many people do they have. The not so critical information is, is it 108 degrees today? Are we going to have enough water to carry our soldiers to the battle? So yeah, there's a lot of different in the decision making matrix for mission for battle. There's a lot of check marks you got
Yeah.
to check off.
Alex brings up David Goggins, and people love his leadership ability. People hate David Goggins and the way he delivers his message. It depends on who's receiving the message, where they are in life, and what they can handle. Doesn't make what David Goggins says less true. Sometimes we, as the receiving end, just don't want to hear it, so we run away to our comfort zone. My daughter, Lucy, she's 13, and I love David Goggins. His story is incredible. And one of the, you want to talk about a beast, just a guy who's really just mastered 6 inches in his life, and it's the 6 inches between his ears. But Lucy will always say, "Dad, why do you always listen to that guy yelling at you all the time?" And I go, that gets me fired up. I absolutely love it. So yeah, and it, as a leader, we have to we have to understand that I may have to speak differently to Alex as I do to Shayna, as I do to Coach. I have to say the same message, but I have to use kid gloves on Coach, because I understand that his ego, his ability to get fired up may different from that of Alex. And then I've got to be able to take Alex and motivate him and say, let's go, get real riled up. And Shayna, I may just have to send her an email and be like, hey, let's get the work done. And she's like, let's get it. Right. So as a good leader, I think that communications, you have to learn that communication for your team and then deliver that. It doesn't always have to be a morning huddle. I worked for a bank that every morning you had to start off with a morning huddle. And here's the goal for today. Here's what we're doing. Hip, hip, hooray. And you could see that there were a lot of employees who just roll their eyes like, not this every day. So you had to say, okay, I need you to take the morning meeting this day, and you to do this, to learn what motivated them and how it motivated them. So I think that your communication style has to be unique, and you have to understand your team. You really have to understand who you're working with as a leader. If I didn't, and I just said everybody morning huddle, I don't care, then I'm more of a manager. If that, I don't know.
Let's move down to Alex's comment. You want to post that up? Leaders love a dictatorship. It works because most people are sheep or want to turn off their brains and be sheep. You let this democracy into a leadership situation, you have floundering fish. I don't, Alex, I love you, but that is a pretty poor outlook of, in my estimation, of people. I don't think people are fish at all, or sheep. I think each and every person who is out there, if they have a family, they're a leader. If they're in a neighborhood, they have a leader. They get into a situation where if they speak up, their job is threatened. So they keep their mouth shut, and that increases their stress, and it kills people. If we would just learn to listen to the people around us, we would all be more successful, and they would be happier. That's my point of view. And
well, but I agree with him, because you can't let democracy into. We can't. Okay, hey, listen.
Why we don't talk about politics?
Yeah. Hey, thank you. We can't let Republicans in either. Sorry.
Democrats.
So you can't go, okay, let's take a vote on, hey, we need to do this, let's take a vote on it. A leader has to point the ship and say, hey, starboard whatever, and steer the ship. Now, a good leader also knows that the deckhands, that everybody has a job to do, and knows how to motivate that person to do their job. And in doing so, the leader has to be open to someone else's ideas. As I'm up, as I just visited on the 4th of July my son out in Norfolk, Virginia. He gave us a tour of the naval base, and it was the first time that I saw up close and personal an aircraft carrier. This is a huge, huge chunk of metal. Okay, and I'm like, how? And I'm looking at him docked in here, and I'm like, how does a 23-year-old drive this big machine? I mean, this is unbelievable. And he says, "Well, Dad, right up there, you see that tower? See the little window up there? That's where the driver sits on this." And I'm like, and I'm like, what? I have trouble, I have trouble backing in a trailer with a boat on it. I'm looking at this huge, I mean, it's massive. It's 10, 15 stories high, and that's what's above water, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, how do you steer this ship? Well, that they know what to do. They know what the gauges say. They know what this and that is, but they're depending on the people down in the engine room to do what the people in the engine room do. They're depending on everybody on that ship to do their job, and it is, as a leader, if I get word up from the engine room that something went wrong, I have to trust those people and that they're making the right decisions. So, very, 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 very. I agree and disagree. Democracy, yep, we can't vote on it, because when that happens, the skipper of that boat can't say, "Well, let's take a vote, everybody." Let's calculate those votes. He's got to take that information and the idea given from somebody and say, "Let's act on it." You know. And Shayna says, "Yeah, true, Kent. I was demotivated by same things that others found motivating. Me too. I sit in several meetings still and roll my eyes like, oh my God, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous, right? And why do you have to say that? I mean, this is a bank. Don't we know how to do this?" So the only people into dictating versus leading are those whose egos are covering insecurity. Well, there you go. That's interesting. And yeah, there's maybe there's a weakness that I have, and because I'm quote unquote perched up into a management position, I can't allow my ego to let down and say, you're right, coach, let's go that way, I was wrong.
Thank you. No, let's just stop right there. I've got that recorded. You're right, coach. Just
There it is, it's in there, right? um so yeah, that is, as a leader, you have to be humble enough to go, that's a great idea, never thought of it, let's move that direction. And like anything else, I'm going to give you the kudos for it the first 2 times. The third time, it's mine.
that's right.
All right, another quick fallacy as we're rolling into the last 7 minutes or so of this show is leaders have very little time for anything else.
Leaders find the time. If you're a leader in a organization, you're probably a leader at home too. And if you're spending all that time leading the organization, you're failing in your leadership role at home. And there's leaders know how to balance their time, and they also know how to delegate appropriately, so they have more time to do the things that they need to do. On the flip side of that, when you're in a management role and you're managing and not leading, you have a tendency to not have time for anything else. So I believe that leaders make the time. Um, and managers struggle to manage time. My thoughts.
Yeah. I, as a leader, you know, you understand what's important and what's not important. You understand what's urgent and what's not urgent. And your leadership style is either you lead to what's urgent or you lead to what's important. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong. And you can absolutely, um, be an urgent leader, and the people who like to do important things aren't necessarily going to follow. And if you're an urgent leader, you may end up taking a lot of time and energy towards that. If you're an important leader, you understand those values, like you were saying.
Yeah. Throw Alex's comment up there because I think it's relevant here. He says, "Okay, so how many coaches led your soccer team? You were the coach. They charged ahead by your voice. They needed to be sheep to your shepherd voice. And this is what I can absolutely address because I speak about 6 times during the course of a soccer match. I teach the athletes how to communicate because they're the one in the fluid situation. They're the ones who see what's happening. Yeah, I'll talk to them at halftime. But during the course of the game, they need to learn to hear each other's voice. They don't need my voice. They need to be able to tune out the parents. They need to tune out and I lead by teaching them how to communicate with each other. So I understand your point here, Alex, but in this case, it's all about leadership and training that happens during practice, during the course and flow of the game. They're listening to each other, not to me, or unless they screw up. But that's a whole nother situation.
I don't know if you ever watched soccer. I don't know if you need to talk more than 6 times. Go out there, kick the ball, run around this big field for a while. Hey,
Yeah.
look, you almost scored. I'm kidding. I'm not really, but I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, having coached both basketball and soccer, I feel the perspective of both. And during the course and flow of a basketball game, things are happening rapidly. I don't know how much talking do you do during the course of or
Ooh,
flow of a game.
man, I lose my voice. No. So as a leader, you, I feel that your team always takes on your personality.
This is true.
I'm intense. I'm intense, and I'm intense with, and I coach ladies sports, right? And um, my daughter's boyfriend of 8 years got to see me coach for the first time an entire game with seventh grade girls, and he goes, "Man, your dad is an animal." Oh my gosh. Because I'm intense, and if the girls goof up, I'm right in their face and say it doesn't work because we're not doing this. I've had other parents from other teams go, "Does he have a girl on this team? Because we'd love him to coach ours." Just because I don't, you know, I believe in letting these women know, these young ladies know that they are strong, that they can do anything that they put their minds to, and you can conquer life. And so I'm very, 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 very intense on the sideline, and I'm talking to them throughout the whole game. And I'm talking to the bench, and because I see things from years and years and years of experience that they don't. Now, when I was young, I used to get upset that they wouldn't see them and react. Now I understand it's my job to help them see that and say, "Hey, this is the direction really you need to go." But my teams are intense and high energy because I'm intense and high energy, and a lot of times the parents love watching me because I'm pretty animated on the sideline. And I'm crazy that way. Listen, it is exactly 1 minute to go. Urgent or important? I've never heard that one. It's a good one, absolutely. And then just because you're a sheep doesn't mean you're less than. Nope, not at all. And a lot of times it's those oxes and horses that pull the wagon. So you got to lean on them quite a bit. Absolutely love everybody tuning in this morning. Started on your week off right with two ball guys and a microphone here at 21.6 The Net. A big week this week, of course. Tomorrow 7:15 p.m. We've got, let me tell you something, brother. Wednesday at 6, we've got the Slate Real Talk with Scott Dean, which is great. We've got a Model T in the background there, obviously. We've got Thursday, the bare facts on guns. Friday's always stacked. And we just got good things going on. If you didn't catch it last night, the Reject Rundown was on. Check them out. Head to their YouTube or our YouTube page. Like, follow, subscribe. And we can't thank everybody enough for joining us this morning. Next week, Coach will be back live in studio.
Back in studio.
And we're going into part 3 of leadership.
Leadership. Yeah, 3 syllables, 3 parts. I think that works out pretty well there. So, guys, thanks for hanging out with us and getting caught in the net. You've been listening to two bald guys and a microphone. And it's time to get off the bench and get back in the game.